Your Excellencies, Madam Jeanette Kagame, First Lady of Rwanda and Chairperson of Mobutu Foundation, Honorable Rosemary Bambazi, Minister of Youth and Culture for Rwanda, Honorable Tabia Maulid Mwita, Minister of Information, Youth, Culture and Sports for Zanzibar, Honorable Emma Kantema Gaumas, Minister of Sport, Youth and National Service in Namibia, representatives of the East African Community Secretariat, thank you, representatives of development partners, distinguished colleagues from the United Nations family, young leaders and young innovators, dear panelists, particularly Dr. Christelle, Dr. Jean-Pierre and Charles, and participants, members of media houses, ladies and gentlemen, and all the young people here. Good morning, or is it now actually afternoon? It has been a great honor for me to be able to join you in person at this year's YouthConnekt Africa Summit in Kigali. I was inspired by the words of our guest of honor, Her Excellency Madam Jeanette Kagame, on particularly the sort of focus on looking at the whole of the human being, the whole of a young person, and understanding the need for us to make sure that we're actually supporting young people in all aspects of their lives. I was also struck by the words around the connectedness of sexual reproductive health and mental health, and the importance that was placed by some of the panelists in ensuring we make those linkages much clearer. And that without mental health, good health, there can be no wealth for our continent. I was also inspired by the words of hope, and we need words of hope at this time, that Her Excellency stressed, and the potential that exists in our young people for the solutions to the problems we face as a continent, but also beyond that, to turbo boost us to the next century. That is going to be in the potential ideas, innovations of our young people. And therefore, a healthy nation and healthy young people is our route to a wealthy nation and wealthy Africa. I'd like to start by I'm particularly pleased actually to listen to the inspirational panel that was here present, and the fact that they were addressing issues that are also close to my heart in the case we need to make in investing in young people's health. And I'd like to start by expressing gratitude to the government and people of Rwanda for hosting the 2022 YouthConnekt Africa Summit under the leadership of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Kagame. I congratulate the co-organizers of the 2022 YouthConnekt Africa Summit and commend the partnership between UNFPA, Mobutu Foundation, the YCA Hub, and other stakeholders for organizing such an exciting and meaningful high-level panel. I know that those of you in this room surely already agree on the importance of addressing sexual and reproductive health and rights and mental health as a pillar to any youth development programs and strategies. Still, we must speak about, so together we find the best ways to integrate this topic, because we also heard about the challenges that face us in demystifying concepts of sexual and reproductive health and rights, and also the stigma around that and of mental health that was eloquently expressed in the contributions from the panelists. And therefore, the struggle continues, and the work needs to be an area where we collectively focus our efforts to ensure that we can make those connections clear in the communities we live in, amongst the people we work with, in the health sector at large, and in the development sector as well, if we're going to see progress in this area. Today, we have listened to young people, experts, decision makers, and leaders. Sexual and reproductive health and rights and mental health are fundamental human rights, which we must protect, promote, and enforce. They were recognized as human rights for the first time in 1994 during the maiden International Conference on Population and Development, the ICPD as it's called, held on our continent in Cairo in Egypt. The ICPD Plan of Action stipulates clearly that all individuals, especially women and young people, must be provided with quality information to make decisions that concern their reproductive health, to have a safe and satisfying sex life, have the ability to reproduce, and must have the right to decide if, when, and whom to marry. The same ICPD Plan of Action clearly makes reference to mental health, and specifically reproductive mental health. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there's a direct link between people's ability to enjoy these rights and their level of socio-economic empowerment. Thus, sexual and reproductive health and rights, good mental health, and women's and youth's empowerment are interdependent and essential for socio-economic progress, sustainable development, poverty eradication, and gender equality. When in 2019, stakeholders met at the Nairobi Summit to mark 25 years of that landmark population conference, ICPD, the leading thread was to accelerate the accomplishment of the unfinished business of the ICPD. The summit ended with the voluntary commitments to accelerate the implementation of the forward-looking SRHR agenda to meet the Sustainable Development Goals and targets by 2030, and many governments represented here in this room made those commitments. Some of the commitments specifically were focused on investing in the education, employment opportunities, health, including family planning, and sexual and reproductive health services of adolescents and youth, especially girls, to harness the promises of the demographic dividend fully, just as outlined in the 4 pillars of the African Union Roadmap on the demographic dividend. The catalytic impact of SRHR on young girls' ability to complete their studies and avail of economic opportunities cannot be overemphasized. When a young schoolgirl finds herself with a pregnancy that she did not plan for, her prospects of attaining her full potential are drastically reduced overnight. An unintended pregnancy is a nightmare for a young woman who just landed her dream job. I'm truly encouraged, therefore, to see and hear young people take leadership, share innovative initiatives to create jobs across different sectors, including the creative industries of film, music, and we had beautiful performances from Michelle just now, arts and culture, and technology. Access to sexual and reproductive health and mental health information and services is a shield and an enabler to those dreams. As we learn of these innovative experiences and best practices, the question is, how do we scale up for a more significant impact? That is where, in my view, like-minded institutions such as ILO, World Bank, UNFPA, Mbuto Foundation, and others come in. Particularly, allow me to take this opportunity as I end to thank all our development partners, without which so many of the results achieved to date could not have been possible. Specifically, I would like to acknowledge the Korean International Cooperation Agency, KOICA, and the Swiss Agency for Cooperation and Development, SDC. In conclusion, I'll say to you, the evidence is very clear. There's never been a better time for all of us to live up to our beliefs and promises. We must put our money and efforts where our interests in scaling up interventions in SRHR and mental health as a necessary bridge to get to the much desired economic empowerment of millions of Africa's young people can be achieved. We cannot ignore the human natural progress of growth, even as we search for the higher ideals outlined in the SDGs and the Africa we want of the Agenda 2063. The young people of Africa are ready. The time is now. UNFPA is committed from our side. I hope you are too. Thank you.